discussion. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you all very much for joining this week's discussion. So we will start our discussion. So we have been discussing from the third verse of Manas Siksha from the commentary of His Holiness Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj. So we will first chant the verse, and then I will do a very quick recap of what we have seen till now in Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj commentary. So we'll chant the verse. Yadi cheravasam vrajabhuvi saragam pratijano yuvattvandvam tachet paricharitumārādabilashe swarupam shri rupam saganamiha tasyagrajamapi sputam premna nityam smaranamatadattvam shrunumana. So here Srila Raghunath Das Goswami is mentioning that, my dear mind, yadi icher avasam, if you desire to stay Vrajabhuvi in Bhauma Vrindavan, Sir Ragam, along possessing the same kind of love that the Vrajavasis have towards Krishna, with that love, if you want to stay in Vrindavan, so stay in Vrindavan and do what? Yuvad Dvandvam Tachet Paricharitum Arad Abhilashe. So while staying in Vrindavan, if you would like to stay close to Radha and Krishna and serve them, then the only means, he says, is Swarupam Shri Rupam Saganam Iha Tasyagrajam Api Smutam Premna Nityam Smara Nama Tadatvam Shrunumana. Then if you want to do that, then the only means is you take shelter of Swarup Damodar Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Sanatan Goswami, which means essentially take shelter of their writings. So which means the only means of attaining that same kind of love which the Vrajavasis possess towards Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan is through the writings of the six Goswamis. This is what this verse talks about. And in this connection, we have been discussing from Srila Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj's commentary to this verse. So he says that the most important thing in this life is how much we have developed attachment towards Krishna. He says everything else will leave, like sand escaping from the middle of our fingers when we try to hold it tight. So everything else will leave. So at the end of the life, the only thing that remains, even across lifetimes, Neha Vikrama Nashosti Pratyavayo na Vidyate Swalpamapyasya Dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhayat. So the only thing that remains is how much we have developed love towards Krishna. So he says that we have to invest there and not invest in developing attachment towards things which will be taken away at the time of life. So Bhagavatam also says, Tasyeva hetoho prayate takovido nalabhyate yad brahmatam uparyadah tallabhyate dukkavadanyata sukam kalena sarvatra gabiraram hasa. So one should, Narada Muni in instructing Vyasadeva, he says, therefore an intelligent person will invest in attaining that destination, attaining which one does not come back. Otherwise, rest of the things are where the investment actually manifests into result for sure. Otherwise, in the ordinary things of this world, most of the things are actually karmically decided, pre-decided. So what is the point in endeavoring in that direction? Because we do not know if our endeavor will directly translate into a proper result or not. We do not know that for sure. So therefore he says endeavor in that direction where your endeavor will directly translate into success. So that is only investment in practicing devotional service. So then Maharaj writes that in this verse, he says, Yadi chair avasam vrajabhuvi saragam pratijanur. And if you want to stay, then the only means is Swarupam Shri Rupam Saganamiha Tasyagrajamapi. Take shelter of the writings of Swarup Damodar Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, and their followers. So then he writes, what should be the mood of approaching our acharyas and their writings? He says the mood that Srila Raghunath Das Goswami mentions is Sputam Premna Nityam. One should clearly approach the writings of our acharyas, meaning we should not take little bit from the writings of our acharyas, little bit from writings of other acharyas, little bit from writings of modern day self-help gurus. Not like that. Clearly it should be only from the writings of our own acharyas. And premna, with love we should approach the subject matter. And nityam meaning incessantly or constantly we should be in touch with the writings of our acharyas. They should be the guiding light of our do's and don'ts in life. So in that should be our mode of approaching the writings of the acharyas. So he mentions that. Then he says that this verse talks about various questions that this verse answers various questions. The first question is, he says that why is Raghunath Das Goswami telling Prati Janu, life after life? But are we not promised that if you take up to devotional service sincerely, in one life also one can achieve success? So why is Raghunath Das Goswami saying life after life? Is that so? Then that one lifetime success, is it just trying to sort of bait us, just over exaggerating so that we will take to the process little more seriously? Is it like that? So he says no. The first thing that he says is yadi ichehe. If you have a desire, if you want to stay in Bhauma Vrindavan, so meaning, the first meaning is that a devotee is not focused, or his main desire is not to go back home, back to Godhead. His main desire is to establish a relationship with Krishna, and for that he is going to stay anywhere. Narayana para sarvena kutaschana bibyati swarga apavarga narakeshu apitulyartha darshina. So whether it is swarga, naraka, apavarga, anywhere he is willing to go. So therefore it is mentioned that yadi chair, which means his icha is not to go back home, but his icha is to stay back, or wherever the opportunity to serve is there, he is willing to stay there. The second reason why he says life after life is that a devotee, out of his natural humility, does not feel that he is qualified to go back home, back to Godhead. He thinks that I am qualified to stay back only in this material world. This is another reason why Pratijanu is mentioned, he says. And the third reason that he says is that Pratijanu, because Bhauma Vrindavan is also very, very beautiful and very ecstatic because of the presence of Krishna. And he says, some acharyas say actually Bhauma Vrindavan is more ecstatic and more wonderful than even Goloka Vrindavan, because the experiences, all the rasas, especially in its Vipralamba Bhav, is experienced to the fullest extent only in Bhauma Vrindavan, like that. So therefore, and in this context, Maharaj gives the example of Bhakti, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, how while he was living, he was so much tormented by the pain of that melanoma cancer, but still, nevertheless, when he used to hear Krishna Leela um, being narrated to him by His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, actually he used to feel so blissful and so happy that he would say that actually I will never share my situation with, I will never exchange my situation with everyone, with anyone. He used to say like that. And it's so blissful, it can never get better than this. It can never get better than this, like that. So even the experience of bliss of Bhauma Vrindavan is so powerful that one who actually gains access to that would not want to give that up, and he would want to take birth again and again in Bhauma Vrindavan and experience that relationship with Krishna, like that. So Maharaj says that the happiness of prema even in Bhauma Vrindavan is so intense that it overshadows all material pain, and that is why the six Goswamis were constantly going around chanting He Radhe Vraja Devike Chalalite He Nanda Sono Kruta Shri Govardhana Kalpapada Patale Kalindi Vanyi Kuta Goshanta Viti Sarvato Vrajapure Kedair Mahavihvalau Vande Rupa Sanatanau Raghuyugau Shri Jiva Gopalakau. So like that, they used to run around everywhere, apparently crying in distress, but that distress was ecstatic bliss actually. And Maharaj says that if we apply ourselves to the process properly in the line according to the teachings of the six Goswamis, then we can also experience the same happiness while we are staying in Bhauma Vrindavan. Okay, so this is the first question. Why life after life? He gives these 3-4 different reasons why Raghunath Das Goswami says Prati Janu, life after life. And then the second question that this verse answers is, why does he say if one wants to stay in Vrindavan and serve Radha and Krishna, then one would expect that that Raghunath Das Goswami would say that you should have the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, and the Panchatattva. But interestingly, why is Raghunath Das Goswami talking about Swarup Damodar Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, like that? Even though, if you see, Raghunath Das Goswami himself had the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami themselves, they excavated the various pastime places in Vrindavan. They discovered Vrindavan primarily through the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Panchatattva. But still, he says, instead of telling you can achieve Vrindavan through mercy of Panchatattva or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda or Gaur Nitai, he says Swarup Damodar Goswami, Rupa Goswami, etc. Why? He says because the Panchatattva broke open the storehouse of love and distributed it to whoever was there at that time. But what about the posterity? What about the people who would come to Krishna consciousness after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left? How would they get that love of Godhead? They can't get that immediately, right? Because it is mentioned that actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended with many of his eternal associates, Nitya Siddhas, who were already in Krishna Prem, and he freely gave, the Panchatattva freely distributed that love, meaning in many cases were cases of Kripa Siddhas. So they were Kripa Siddhas, but after they left, this Kripa Siddhi is very rare. So how can the others actually gain access to that same love of Godhead that the Panchatattva had? Okay, so so that was only through the writings of the six Goswamis. They gave the proper guidelines as to how paddhati or the roadmap to approach the same love of God that the Panchatattvas experienced themselves and distributed while they were there. Okay, and for this, the special role of Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami and Rupa Goswami was that they actually understood the heart of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale. And not only, but while Swarup Damodar Goswami understood and Rupa Goswami also understood, but the glory of Rupa Goswami is that he also established the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this material world through his writings. Okay, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended for two purposes. Hmm? That prema rasa niryasa karite aswadan, raga marga bhakti lokya karite pracharan. So he wanted to himself experience the love of the Vrajavasis and Radharani, and after experiencing it himself, he wanted to distribute it also. Right? These were the two purposes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's descent. So the first purpose of experiencing it himself he did, and the second purpose of his descent, which is to distribute that love, actually the Goswamis through their writings they did. So actually his real purpose of his he is called the Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate. So Rupa Goswami compiled the shloka about, he wrote the shloka about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that you are Namo Mahavadanyaya, but that Namo, that Mahavadanyaya, the most magnanimous role, was actually performed by Rupa Goswami and other Goswamis only. Through their writings only, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually became established as Namo Mahavadanyaya. Therefore, here Raghunath Das Goswami says, Swarupam Shri Rupam Saganamiha Tasyagrajamapi. Like that. So it is only through their writings that we understand what the Panchatattva were actually really enjoying. Okay. So, so Nityananda Prabhu and others would go door to door and distribute the holy name. But they did not, but Nityananda Prabhu did not explain what we should feel or what we would feel if we chant the holy name nicely and perfect the holy name. And while chanting the holy name, if the anarthas trouble us, how do we overcome those anarthas? Those explanations Nityananda Prabhu himself did not give. But if we also think that we can just chant the holy name and not know the Sambandha Gyan, so then the problem is that without that Sambandha Gyan, we may completely get lost. So, so therefore, how we can, so therefore, while we are chanting, for example, so if, you know, so if we are going through some emotions, you know, certain emotions come up, we feel like crying or whatever, how do we know if those tears are real tears, or are they due to our achieving the stage of bhava and prema, or are they material tears, or are we trying to act like sahajiyas? So how do we know exactly whether these emotions are real or unreal or fake? Are they nourishing our devotional development, or are they acting as obstacles to our devotional development? How do we know? Only through the writings of the Goswamis, whether it is Rati Abhas, or is it real bhava, or is it the sahajiya tears, right? So that we can understand only through the Sambandha Gyan and the Rasa Tattva, which is described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, right? And Maharaj writes that even within ISKCON, because of improper Sambandha Gyan, there are many different types of theories which float around. Sometimes people say, what is the need of discussing about Vrindavan? Just chant the holy name, distribute books. There is no need to read or understand books. We are not here to become Gyanis, we are here to become devotees. So there is no need to study too much. If you study too much, you will become a jnani, like that. Um, but the point is that uh, Rupa Goswami, then for what purpose has the um, six Goswamis written these books, right? Rupa Raghunatha Pade Hoibe Akuti Tabe Hama Buja Bose Yugala Piriti. So he says that only through the writings of Rupa and Raghunath we can understand the love of Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan. It is a spiritual science, right? So and then Maharaj gives the example of just like when a company would want to launch a product, first it will give out some free samples, and when people take that free samples and use it, actually they will get attached to it, and when they get attached to it, then they have to pay for it. So in that sense, he says that the Panchatattva came, they broke open the storehouse, distributed it for free, and people got attached to it. And then later, after they left, they said, you have to pay for it. So then, how do I pay for it? How do I earn the currency which is needed to pay for it? He says, through the writings of the Goswamis. Like that. And then if we don't have the writings of the Goswamis, then it becomes very difficult. So he says that, and he gives the example of a new bhakta who comes, the story of a new bhakta who uh, who actually starts chanting, and he starts experiencing um, tears, and he starts hearing some uh, tune in his Mahamantra tune in his heart, and then he feels very emotional. And he himself was thinking, this must be fake, this must be some Ratyabhas, this must be some Bhavabhas, like that he was thinking. But then Maharaj, when he heard this story, he said, hey, how can you call this Ratyabhas? This is actually a glimpse of real bhava that is manifest in the heart of this person. But because people don't read the books, they misguide even genuine practitioners by telling that these tears are actually sahajiya tears, or these tears are just um, uh, they are just some ratyabhas, like that. People misguide, and the person thinks that is this kind, these tears are actually an obstacle to my progress in devotional service. So basically the point is, Maharaj is again and again hammering this point of important of taking shelter of the writings of the Goswamis. Only through that, in today's day and age, we can achieve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. Okay. So and then he says, what does it mean to sputam, to clearly remember with love? Sputam premna nityam. Okay. Sputam premna nityam smara. Remember clearly, with love, and incessantly. So how this is done? Actually, Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami has taught using his own example. And he gives the example of how in Bhakti Ratnakar, there is a description of Raghunath Das Goswami in his final years. He was living on the banks of Radhakund, and his feelings were so intense that he was constantly feeling separation from Radharani and Krishna. And he used to constantly be crying and chanting, where are you, Sri Swarup Damodar? Where are you, Sri Rupa Goswami? Where are you, Sri Sanatana Goswami? Like that, he was experiencing this. He himself showed that what is the meaning of Sputam Premna Nityam. Swarupam Shri Rupam Saganamiha Tasyagrajam Api Sputam Premna Nityam Smara Nama Tadatvam Shrunumana. So how this is practiced practically, Raghunath Das Goswami in his last days of his manifest pastimes at Radhakund, he actually showed. And Narottam Das Thakur also, through many of his writings, he has mentioned, Rupa Raghunatha Pade Haibe Akuti Tabe Hama Bhuja Bose Yugala Piriti. Rupa Raghunatha Pade Rahumora Ash Prarthana Kariye Sada, Narottama Das, or even in Jaya Nilo Premadana, Karuna Prachur, he explains, he expresses the same sentiments. So this is the meaning of Sputam Premna Nityam, clearly with love and incessantly. These Vaishnavas have showed the importance of having such feelings, right? So basically, then subsequently, Maharaj writes that how it is only through the writings we understand how one gets that seed of devotion, and how that seed of devotion is watered and nourished, and how it grows. Hmm? So, and what are the various ways of getting bhava, how sadhana matures into bhava, how actually one can receive bhava through mercy also, and how receiving bhava through mercy is very rare. How does one get prema, and how do you understand whether it is real bhava or not? What are the reliable symptoms of bhava and prema? And all these things are discussed in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Rupa Goswami. And how this Rupa Goswami exactly understood the heart of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we discussed last time, that how in the Rath Yatra actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was singing a song which actually sounded more like a cinema song, and Rupa Goswami could, even the other devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they were really surprised that why was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu singing this kind of a song which sounds more like a cinema song. And actually Rupa Goswami wrote the meaning of that song and put it in the roof of his hut. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he got that, he was so surprised that someone could understand so clearly what was there in his heart. And he started asking um, uh, Swarup Damodar Goswami that how is it that he understood, Srila Rupa Goswami understood exactly what was there in my heart. And he said that actually you must have bestowed it. Otherwise, how is it possible for him to understand what was there in your heart? And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that yes, when I met him in Siddha Bakul, I actually embraced him, and after embracing him, I bestowed him with my mercy. Like that he mentions. But then after bestowing him with his mercy, he says that, but now, O Swarup Damodar Goswami, you go and instruct him about how to further practice and how to move forward, like that. So Maharaj writes that he, through that he wanted to show that how we should go to our spiritual master and he explain to us even what we have already understood. Because through that we get the uh, uh, we receive actually in one sense uh, the power of realizations that the spiritual master has gained over years of practice. So we can gain access to the spiritual master's realizations by hearing from him. Even though we may know the theoretical answer, but to gaining access to exalted souls realizations is very, very vital and important in our progress, for our progress in Krishna consciousness. So therefore he says that you go and guide him, like that. And Prabhupada gives his own story about how he wrote this poem, Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved impersonal calamities, thou hast removed, like that. He says that that even once, that how uh, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur was so impressed and pleased that Prabhupada could exactly understand what his heart was. And then he called all his very senior disciples and he told, look, he has understood my heart, like that. And out of humility, Prabhupada said that how could I understand my spiritual master's heart? I don't know. Like that he was mentioning. So then we saw that then elaborately he explains that how in Bhakti-rasam Sindhu Srila Rupa Goswami writes about rasa. He differentiates between material rasa and spiritual rasa. How there is a difference between material rasa and spiritual rasa. Material rasa is on the platform of false ego. Spiritual rasa is on the platform of true ego. Material rasa is Atmendriya Priti. Spiritual rasa is Krishnendriya Priti. But still they have something in common. Okay, they get triggered in very similar ways. Okay, and the sthai bhavas like dasya, sakya, vatsalya, madhurya, these sthai bhavas are there in material relationships also, and they are triggered. These emotions are triggered in very similar ways, both in material rasa and spiritual rasa. And after getting triggered, they manifest in the body and senses and mind in very similar ways. So Maharaj gives the example of um, the Beatles. How when the Beatles would sing, people would cry and faint, and these are all sattvika bhavas, anubhavas, sanchari bhavas with respect to material rasa. And he says that these are there. And in this context, we saw that how material and spiritual are not exactly opposite. So they have something in common. That is why you can have material examples or material analogies to explain spiritual reality. And we saw the example of Vritrasur, and through that example we tried to understand how different aspects of spirit can be understood through different material objects, which may which could explain some aspect of that spiritual reality. So that we saw. In this way, Rupa Goswami also uh, uh, basically framed Bhakti Rasam Sindhu based on the framework of Natya Shastra, which was written by Bharat Muni, which actually describes material emotions only. But because of the similarity in which they get triggered and they manifest in body, mind, and senses, actually Rupa Goswami took that and he explained spiritual rasa through that particular Natya Shastra written by by Bharat Muni, like that. Then he explains various aspects of rasa, which we discussed, and he says that how this rasa manifests. First, we start with Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and Raganuga, then we move on to Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, and these two are Cheshta Rupa Anushilanam. Cheshta Rupa Anushilanam means where there is continuous usage of mind, body, and senses, but without any spiritual emotions. But then gradually, when we keep engaging our mind, body, and senses in Krishna's service, at the stage of bhava, spiritual emotions start manifesting. When the heart becomes completely cleansed of all anarthas, then it becomes the place where the Samvit and Hladini potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead can manifest. So he explains that, and in this way, it becomes Cheshta Rupa Nushilanam becomes Bhava Rupa Nushilanam, whereby continuously engaging the mind, body, and senses, gradually it leads to manifestation of spiritual emotions. So this we discussed last time, and so in this way he was discussing various aspects of rasa, that how there is a similarity between material rasa and spiritual rasa, and from material rasa also there are certain aspects that we can understand about spiritual rasa. Okay, so then we discussed about how in rasa, this is to some extent true in material rasa, but it is absolutely true in terms of spiritual rasa. Actually, Maharaj mentions that how even through bliss, one can experience bliss even through feelings of separation. What the modern people call as catharsis, or a cathartic effort, even effect, even in crying and suffering, one experiences a sense of catharsis that he talks about, right? So then we discussed about how, and so basically the point was how Rupa Goswami has made us understand that God it is actually accessible, and he has given us the roadmap through Rasamrit Sindhu, like that, and how to overcome the anarthas which may trouble us, like that. So so Rupa Goswami explains that how through sadhana bhakti we start engaging our mind and senses in the ninefold process of devotional service. Gradually, bhava bhakti is reached, and the roadmap to the realm of spiritual emotions was given by Srila Rupa Goswami. And in order to understand that, he used the Natya Shastra. Okay. So then, and he says that because people, right from the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left, right from that timely, people, there were classes of people who gave up following the writings of the Goswamis, or they did follow the writings of the Goswamis. And because of, even from that time, the Apasampradaya sects started. And he gives the example of the Panchasakis in Odisha. So the Panchasakis in Odisha, so they started this whole Apasampradayas, like that. And then he explains the and such problems can come within ISKCON also if we do not follow the writings of our acharyas. Okay. And then in this context, he explains the importance of the Keturi festival. The Keturi festival actually indicates a very, very important thing. He says that Jiva Goswami taught Srinivasacharya, Narottam Das Thakur, and Shyamanand Pandit, and he inspired them to carry, he very painstakingly compiled all the writings of the Goswamis, himself wrote commentaries to many of those books, and he sent those books through these three, Narottam Das Thakur, Shyamanand Pandit, and Srinivasacharya, to Keturi. The main purpose was because these Apasampradayas had started in Bengal and Orissa, he wanted to stop them and establish the right Siddhanta by sending the books. And he mentions that before that, actually, Janava Mata was quite old. She herself came all the way from Bengal to Vrindavan to learn the proper Gaudiya Siddhanta from Jiva Goswami. And then after that, she was the one who encouraged Jiva Goswami to send those things. So he wrote everything, compiled everything, wrote commentaries, then loaded the cart, sent the cart through these three exalted devotees to Keturi, where in Keturi festival, the main purpose of Keturi festival was to introduce the Goswami's writings to the whole of Gaudadesh, Bengal and Odisha, so that all these Apasampradayas can be stopped. And it is mentioned that in that particular festival, actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu personally came and joined the kirtan and dancing. Uh, in essence, actually completely approving the purpose of that whole festival, so like that. So therefore he says that this actually indicates the whole Keturi festival actually establishes this point that the road forward after the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's disappearance, eventually the road forward to progress in Krishna consciousness only through the writings of the Acharyas, writings of the six Goswamis. This is what actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu's personal appearance in Keturi festival. This indicates that. That's what it's mentioned here. Okay. So, so I think this is where we ended our discussion. So this is a quick recap. So today, hopefully, we will have time to complete our at least Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj commentary. But at this point, I will pause a few seconds to see if there are any quick comments, questions based on this recap and what we discussed last week. So I'll wait for you to raise your hands. In the meantime, just give me half a minute. I will just drink a glass of water and come. Meantime, you can please raise your hands. I'll come and unmute you and we can have a discussion. Just hold on. Okay. So I don't see any hands up. Okay. Yeah, one hand is up. Madhavi Gopi Mataji, I am unmuting.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavad.
Dandavad.
Prabhuji, from Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Prabhuji, last time, whatever analogy you had mentioned about that we go to, suppose, movie and whatever things are going on over there. So we experience the same emotions. That is the rasa, what you have mentioned.
Similar.
Yeah, similar kind of it. Yeah. So I was just trying to understand that from that analogy, can we understand bhava also, like, because I could understand till that point that whatever those emotions. So whether it is possible for us to understand what is bhava also from that.
Yeah, basically, yeah, some aspects of bhava can be understood, if not completely, but some aspects of bhava to some extent, emotions of bhava to some extent can be understood from our material experience of emotions, but not completely, but it is possible. And that is how Srila
Like
Rupa Goswami has explained the subject matters in Bhakti Rasam Sindhu.
actually, I'm confused in that understanding. Means what you are now explaining is whatever we experience as rasa, same thing can be thought as bhava also. Like rasa
No,
and bhava
I
are
said to
getting
some.
confused.
Rasa. So bhava, bhava is a stage just like prema is a stage, and at the stage of we experience the full-fledged emotions with respect to Krishna, which is called as rasa. But at the stage of bhava, what we experience is called as rati. So rati is like a bud form of rasa. So the emotions are in a budding form, but the fully blossomed experience of emotions is called as rasa. In a budding form, it is called as rati. So rati is what we experience at the stage of bhava. Rasa, the full-fledged emotions, is what is experienced at the stage of prema, like that.
Okay, like NOD also mentions that how we can bhava and prema, how we understand, like before the dawn, whatever sunlight is there, that is bhava, and then what fully
Correct.
is rising sun. Similarly, we understand rati and rasa also. Okay,
Rasa.
yeah,
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much.
Anything else? Anyone else has any quick comments, questions before we move on to today's discussion? Okay. So since there are no hands up, we will continue our discussion. So, talking about this Keturi festival, it's mentioned that it was then that the tradition of remembering the uh, names of Vaishnavas originated. So from that time of Keturi festival, actually it was Narottam Das Thakur who introduced this whole point of remembering the names of Vaishnavas. That how names of the Vaishnavas are purifying, so they should be remembered. The first thing that we should remember as soon as we wake up is we should remember the names of Vaishnavas, like that. Pratah Smaraniya, like that. So he says in another of his songs, Narottam Das Thakur mentions several times that it is the dust of Vaishnava's feet in which he bathes, right? Vaishnavera Padaduli, Tahe Mora Snana Keli, like that he says. Vaishnavera Namete Ullas. So for me, I take bath in the dust of the Vaishnava's Lord feet, and then he says, Vaishnavera Namete Ullas, and I get all pleasure in just chanting the names of the Vaishnavas. Here he writes, chanting the names of Vaishnava is the source of my happiness. So Vaishnava Namete Ullas. That's what he is. He writes, when he hears the names of Vaishnavas, he is overwhelmed with ecstasy. The Vaishnavas' names in our tradition are called Pratah Smaraniya, that which must be remembered in the morning. So this is a good habit. Maharaj also writes that every day morning we should wake up uh, chanting and remembering not only the names of the Supreme Lord, we should also chant and remember the names of devotees, especially our spiritual master. In other words, Maharaj says, we rise early in the morning, we must remember names of the devotees of the Lord. We must remember Swarupam, Shri Rupam, Saganamiha Tasyagrajamapi. Must remember Raghunath Das Goswami, Lokanath Goswami, Narottam Das Thakur, Shamanand Pandit, and Srinivas Acharya. We must remember all of them. Imagine having woken up early in the morning, and the first thing we think of is not the terrible dreams we were having, not the stomach ache, not anything else. Vaishnavanam, Swarupam Shri Rupam. So how wonderful it would be if that is the first thing that we are remembering as soon as we wake up in the morning. When we wake up each morning, we can say Swarupam Shri Rupam Saganam Tasyagrajamapi. So marketing, practically, how do we practice this? So we, during the day, we study their books, and as soon as we wake up, we express gratitude that, my dear Goswamis, you are so wonderful. Oh, my dear Acharyas, my dear Srila Prabhupada, my dear Guru Maharaj, thank you very much for giving this clarity and hope in spiritual life, because of which I am able to progress with determination. So with confidence and determination, I am able to progress, because you have given this clarity through your writings and words. When we wake up each morning, we can say Swarupam Shri Rupam Saganamihatasyagrajamapi. Raghunath Das Goswami says here that remembering the names of Vaishnavas is the condition for attaining love of Godhead. The condition for attaining love of Godhead is to remember the names of the great Vaishnavas, especially the six Goswamis. When we remember the devotees, attachment to Krishna appears in us by itself, because Vaishnavas are eternally linked with Krishna. So when we remember devotees, automatically Maharaj says we get connected to Krishna. So now let us return to rasa, the theory of rasa, and how the mystical experience of rasa comes. Basically, because he writes this, because this is the main contribution of the Goswamis, the theory of rasa. And again he is talking about rasa, because these kind of explanations of rasa is not there in any other Sampradayas writings. It is there only in our Sampradaya writings, actually. So Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is landmark creation. This kind of creation is not there in any of the other Sampradayas. A very scientific explanation of spiritual emotions. Rupa Goswami gives a definition of sadhaka in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in terms of the elements of rasa or mystical experience. He says that there are two kinds of devotees, siddhas and sadhakas. So siddhas means perfect devotees and sadhakas means practitioners. Utpanna ratayah samyak nirvigyam anupagataha Krishna sakshat kritau yogi sadhaka parikirta. So he's calling them as sadhaka, even though here the word sadhaka indicates a bhava bhakta. He is not a sadhaka in itself. Actually, here sadhaka is a bhava bhakta. Because he has not attained prema, he is called as sadhaka. But in reality, he is actually at the stage of bhava. Sadhaka parikirtita. A person is praised as a sadhaka if uttanna ratayah samyag, if he has fully awakened his love for Krishna. So fully here means at the stage of bhava. Nairvignyam anupagataha, but there are still some obstacles on his way. Samyak vigyam anupagataha. So complete destruction of obstacles has not been accomplished, because at the stage of bhava there are trace amounts anarthas. Still there. Therefore he is so vigyam means obstacles, and anupagataha have not been fully destroyed. Krishna sakshat kritau yogya, but still yogya, he is worthy of to directly see Krishna. Such a person is called a sadhaka. Here sadhaka is a bhava bhakta, because for him still the goal of prema has not yet been achieved. So he has to practice at the stage of bhava in order to actually achieve like that. So in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that the Swarup Lakshan, essential definition of sadhana, is Shravanam Kirtanam, he says. So the Swarup Lakshan of sadhana is Shravanam Kirtanam. The essential limbs are Primarily, sadhana means Shravanam and Kirtanam. Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Karaye Uday, like that he says. Shravanadi, everything that we do is inspired by hearing, and everything that is triggered by our hearing about Krishna is sadhana. So, whatever we do by hearing from the Shastras is called as sadhana. So, therefore, it all starts with Shravanam. Therefore, Shravana Adi, starting with Shravanam. Now he says that the Tatastha Lakshana or the secondary characteristic of sadhana is that it gives prema. So, like that. Why is the main feature of sadhana Shravanam Kirtanam and the secondary characteristic is that it gives prema? He says, why is the primary characteristic of sadhana Shravanam Kirtanam and why is the secondary characteristic is that it gives prema? So Maharaj writes, it is the main feature because the essence of sadhana is to hear and glorify Krishna. That is the primary aspect of sadhana. Okay. And prema may come, may not come. Right? That is why bhakti is called a sudurlabha, especially bhava bhakti and prema bhakti. They are called they are sudurlabha, very, very, very rare. But Shravanam Kirtanam is the key that should be there. Why prema or attainment of prema is the secondary feature of sadhana is because it sometimes gives prema and sometimes it does not at that stage. Rupa Goswami explains that as we perform sadhana, as we chant the holy names, we hear and preach. When we tell others about Krishna, when we sing the holy names loudly, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, our bhava or attachment to Krishna gradually deepens. The essence of our practice is that the attachment that dawned at the very first moment of our start of devotional service in the form of Shraddha completely transformed our lives. Right? The first time when that faith in the holy name, the faith in the process, when it first dawned in our heart, from that time on, our lives were no longer same. It was totally different. Our lives completely transformed. The word Shraddha in Sanskrit comes from the word Shrad, which means truth. So Shraddha, that's how Adav Shraddha. Bhakti started with Shraddha. Shrad means truth. It is said that one of the functions of the intellect, our buddhi, is the ability to recognize truth. So this is called as Samshayota Viparyascho, Samshaya, Viparyasa, Nishchaya, Swapa, and Smriti. So these are the 5 aspects of intelligence. Samshaya means having a doubt. Is this the right knowledge or not? So having that doubt, that is called as Samshaya. So when that doubt comes, then you try to understand Viparyas. What is wrong knowledge? What is right knowledge? You try to identify the wrong knowledge. So when you have identified what is wrong, then subsequently you understand what is right. So that is called as Nishchaya. The right knowledge is understood. So he says in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, this is described by Kapiladev. Kapiladev describes that intelligence has a function called Nishchaya. So Nishchaya means that at a certain point I recognize the truth, but not by any logical process. So identifying what is proper truth, that is a sign of intelligence, and that is called as Shraddha actually. I understand this is truth, like that, right? When we come to Krishna consciousness or when we develop that faith, what is the symptom of that faith? Understand that yes, what they are talking, what these devotees are mentioning, this is the right understanding. So we come to this conclusion. Okay, so this is called as Nishchaya. This is one of the aspects of Shraddha. Shrad means truth. Dha means to receive or give. Obtaining Shraddha is when suddenly the veil is removed from our eyes. We realize that there is God and we need no evidence whatsoever. Right? So once we receive that Shraddha, then actually we understand, okay, now Krishna is there and I have to perform bhakti. So till now, till we receive that Shraddha, there was a screen where we could not really be sure whether Krishna is there or not, whether this bhakti is the right process or not. That curtain was there. As soon as we receive that Shraddha, that curtain is removed. We suddenly understand that he exists because it just cannot be otherwise. Faith is precise this feeling. Yes, these people must be right. These books must be right. This parampara must be right. Right? And this process of Navabhakti must be right. That feeling that this is right, this is the right knowledge, that is called as Shraddha, and that is what Kapiladev calls as Nishchaya. Yes, now I have understood the uh, real science, what is right, real knowledge. It is not it is not because there is some logical chain that has led me to this understanding, or because somebody told something, but simply because it cannot be otherwise. So it's not that someone really convinced that this is right or anything like that, but actually we understand that yes, this has to be right, because uh, over period of, as we saw before, over a period of many lifetimes, we accumulate this agyata sukriti, these very favorable devotional impressions, which completely reinforce um, that how understanding is correct and perfect. And no one has explained, no one may have explained it in a very logical way, but still we have this faith. I can recognize God, I can see this truth inside, and I fully recognize God by my intelligence or buddhi. Hmm? So we are at least intellectually convinced uh, that God is there, right? um, like that. So that is Shraddha. When we obtain Shraddha, we are overwhelmed by an extraordinary exaltation that sometimes lasts for years. Recently, someone wrote to me saying, I have been chanting Hare Krishna for 2 years, and it seems that the Utsahamayi stage is not over yet. When will it be over? So, uh, like if you remember, sometimes we discussed from Madhurya Kadambini about these various stages of uh, unsteady devotional service. And the first stage is Utsahamayi. Utsahamayi means the stage of false confidence, where initially um, we start following and we think that, okay, actually I'm very, we feel super enthusiastic, and we feel that, oh, if today I could chant 4 rounds, tomorrow I can chant 8 rounds, then day after tomorrow I can chant 12 rounds, and then next day 16 rounds. Like that, in no time I will reach 108 rounds. Like that, we feel a sense of false confidence, and then we think that, oh, these other people, they don't they are not following properly, they are just wasting their lives. But I have understood, I have. So we we sort of feel like, the process is very easy, and I am easily going to perfect this process, like that. And someone approached Maharaj, and she said, Maharaj, when is I've been practicing Krishna consciousness for 2 years, and still it seems like my Utsahamayi stage is not gone at all. I am still feeling quite confident, lot of confidence, solid confidence. So when is it going to be there, like that? If a person tries to avoid offenses, Maharaj says, if a person tries to avoid offenses and serve the Vaishnavas, this ecstasy or euphoria can last infinitely, and ultimately will lead us all the way to prema. He says one of the main reasons why this Utsahamayi stage goes down is that very quickly we start performing offenses, as when we come closer and closer to the process and to the devotees, then familiarity starts breeding contempt, and when it starts breeding contempt, then gradually the taste goes away. So but he says that if we are very careful from the beginning only, if one has really good association, very inspiring association with wonderful guidance, inspiring guidance, gradually when we start avoiding the offenses from the beginning only, he says that this euphoria can last infinitely also, all the will prema. So it's not necessary that the utsahamai stage will have to very quickly come to an end, and the whole ganatarala and all those things should start. He says this is not compulsory if one very carefully avoids offenses. It's actually very rare, but it is possible. That's what it is indicating here. The entire path from the very beginning to the very end is infused with ecstasy, and obtain a taste of this experience of ecstasy at the level of Shraddha only. It is possible, Maharaj says, if we carefully try to avoid the offenses. As we practice Shravanam and Kirtanam, we must deepen this ecstasy, this bhava towards Krishna. So that's what here Maharaj is indicating. I received another letter that said, so Maharaj is talking about another letter. So in that letter it was mentioned, when met the devotees, I became happy. I understand why I became happy. So someone wrote to Maharaj, Maharaj, when I met the devotees, I became very happy, and I was just to understand why I became happy. That. So this is the way the mind works. The intellect understands something, and then the mind starts interpreting it, asking why, how, and what is happening. So Maharaj is giving purport in between. This is Maharaj's purport. So what is within quotes is what was written in the letter, and Maharaj is giving a purport for each line. So this is what way the mind works, because the intellect is pulling the mind. Mind, instead of accepting bliss, it's trying to question, why did I feel happy? Why am I happy in their association like that? The letter continued. And at a certain point, I realized that I have suddenly found the meaning of my existence, that previously everything was pointless. So Maharaj writing that um, uh, I became happy because I have understood the meaning of my existence in the association of devotees. They have helped me understand that there is a higher reason for living in this life, living in this world in birth, and it is not just to eat, sleep, defend, and mate. There is a higher purpose of life. When I understood higher purpose, he says that I became happy. So this is exactly what is called as Shraddha. So when one receives that Shraddha, then naturally one feels happy. This is that Utsaha, that clarity of life one receives as one meets devotees. That's what he's indicating here. This ecstasy comes because of the fact that God is in our lives, that He loves us, that He is a personality and wants our love and nothing else. When we understand this in the association of devotees, we naturally become very happy. He is not some evil despot who sends everyone to hell. They do not love Him. This is not true. This ecstasy can and must last and deepen in the course of our sadhana. So while we are practicing, this ecstasy that we get in the initial days when we understand uh, um, uh, when we understand the nature of devotional service, nature of Krishna, actually if you have the right association, sajatiya ashes nigde sanga swatovare, if we have nice, like-minded, um, affectionate, inspiring, elevating devotee association, then actually, even though it starts with ecstasy, it does not have to necessarily go down. That ecstasy can actually continue and deepen with the Sambandha Gyan in the association of devotees. It can actually deepen and become more wonderful if uh, the right association is there. So everything we do is only for the purpose of deepening this ecstasy. So this feeling and ecstasy, whatever we do it for deepening this ecstasy. That's what he's indicating. When this ecstasy reaches the stage of attachment or asakti or the stage of bhava, it is called as Sai Bhava, and it becomes permanent. So basically, Maharaj is explaining all these things because this is what Goswami has taught in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and this is the meaning of Swarupam Shri Rupam Saganamiha Tasyagrajamapi. At the level of Bhajana Kriya, this is sporadic, up and down like that. It's like a sinusoid, a curve having the form of a sine wave. Now it is here and the next moment it is gone. Like that. At the stage of Bhajana Kriya, it is up and down, up and down. Moreover, most of the sinusoid is below zero. Sometimes the sinusoid wave elapses somewhere and then again bang, we come down. Sinusoid means, like that sine wave, like that. But Maharaj, most of the time our sine wave is like this, and sometimes it may little bit come up, but mostly it is below zero only, like that in the beginning stages. But gradually, it's not that the sine wave may go away. Gradually the sine wave should start, the slope of the sine wave should start going up, and then the crest and the it will start becoming smaller and smaller, like that. This is called Anishtita Bhajana Kriya. So Anishtita Bhajana Kriya means unstable devotional service. When we have no stability in our devotional service, this is how it is. When we reach stability, so this is till Nishta. So till Nishta, it is up and down, up and down. When we reach Nishta, our bhakti is somewhere on the zero in the form of a flat line. So then the signs disappear. It gradually starts increasing like this. It is a smooth zero bhakti, and then small explosions of ecstasy overwhelm us again, and there is a flat line where we feel calm and pure, like that. So it's like so if this is the axis, y axis, so the sine waves, so there till Nishta, and they became smaller and smaller and smaller. At the stage of Nishta, it was nice flat bhakti, steady bhakti, and in between, there is a spikes of ecstasy, like that. And then gradually at the stage of Ruchi, it starts increasing with spikes, and at the stage of Asakti, it becomes bigger and a steeper slope, like that. It keeps on increasing like this. At the level of Ruchi, the ecstasy gets strong and we slightly rise above zero, right? So this is Ruchi. So this is Nishta. And from here, this is Ruchi. And from then on, it is Asakti, like that. But at the level of Bhava, love for Krishna, the ecstasy becomes a permanent Sthayi Bhav, which means we establish our permanent relationship with Krishna in either Dasyaras or Sakyaras or Vatsalyaras or Madhuryaras, like that. So Rupa Goswami explains how Sthayi Bhav manifests eternally. So basically all this discussion to indicate that how did we understand all these things only through the writings of Srila Rupa Goswami. Therefore, we should take shelter. Swarupam, Shri Rupam, Saganamihata Sajamapi through their writings. That's what he's indicating here. Sthai Bhava means permanent bhava or permanent love for Krishna and is the main content of rasa. At the level of bhava, there are uh, there are nevertheless things to help this ecstasy manifest itself eternally. So they are called as like samagri bhavas. So the samagri bhavas, that's what explaining the samagri bhavas here. So samagri bhavas means component bhavas. You know, what are these aspects of ecstatic feelings? So that's what he is trying to explain here. One of the elements of rasa when sthai bhava turns rasa is vibhav. So vibhav means what? Vibhav means that which triggers the emotion, right? So what triggers the emotion? You should have lover and the beloved, right? Mother and son, lover and beloved, friend, one friend and another friend. So these are called as Vishaya Alambana. So Vishaya Alambana means object of love. Ashraya Alambana means abode of love. And Uddipan means something connected to the object of love that can trigger love emotions. I think I've shared this many times. Uh, uh, Sometimes when I used to feel very homesick when I was in my school, boarding school, I used to have a old dhoti of my father, and I used to silently, with no one watching, I used to take it out of my locker and I used to embrace dhoti, and I used to feel very much solaced like that. So it was something connected to my father, the object of love. So this is an uddipan. So in Vrindavan, if you see, when the Vrajavasi see the footprints of Krishna, that acts as a uddipan, it generates that emotion, like Akrura when he was coming to Vrindavan, right? Then the gopis, when they see a peacock, that peacock's feather acts as a uddipan to uh, to generate an emotion connected to Krishna. Or when Mother Yashoda sees the ankles of Krishna, like that. So all these things connected to Krishna act as uddipan, whereas Krishna himself is Vishaya Alambana, and the devotee is the Ashraya Alambana, abode of love, right? So these are the things. So when Vishaya and Ashraya come together, love, the emotion is triggered. Or if Ashraya and Uddipan comes together, then again the emotion is triggered. Like when Mother Yashoda thing comes in touch with the ankle bell of Krishna, it triggers emotions. Or if she comes in touch with Krishna himself, then again it triggers emotions. So like that, so these emotions are dependent on the three things: Vishaya Alambana, Ashraya Alambana, and Uddipan. These three are called as Vibhav. Okay, and this Vibhav aspect is there in material rasas also, right? So in home, actually, my parents have collected. My father was somehow, he was not he was not exactly an expert photographer, but he really liked um, preserving memories through photographs. Those were the days of film rolls. So he regularly, we had a camera, and he used to regularly take photographs at various stages of our growing up, and whenever guests would come, our friends would come, he would take photographs, and every now and then we used to take them to the studio to give that film roll washing and developing, and used to go another day to collect the photographs and the negatives, and we used to purchase an album, put it very nicely in order. Every time I visit, we used to sit with the albums, old albums, and reminisce, you know, old memories like that. So, so these are all like Uddipan. So these aspects in material emotions also triggered in very similar ways, actually. And with respect to Krishna also, in Vrindavan, similar ways, the emotions get. So this is the first aspect of, you know, first component of rasa, which is called as bhav, right? Sometimes said that Krishna is Uddipan, sometimes it is said that Krishna is Vishaya Alambana, and sometimes that Krishna is Ashraya Alambana, right? So how is Krishna Uddipan? So Krishna is Uddipan because Krishna possesses qualities. He possesses various qualities which can inspire that like Krishna's like example, Uddhava is feeling aho bakiyam stanakala kutam jigumsayapya yayadapya sadvi lebe gati datruchitam tatonyam kamva dayalum sharanam shema. So when he thinks about the complete compassion of Krishna in dealing with how he dealt with Putana, that even though she came to kill Krishna, Krishna actually to her out of compassion the role of Dhat, a nurse. When he thought about it, it generated very solid emotions. So the quality of compassion, right, and many other qualities actually are beauty of Krishna. So compassion of Krishna. So these qualities can act as Uddipan because qualities are connected to Krishna, right? So this would qualify as Uddipan. Sometimes Krishna is called as Vishayalambana, right? So because he is the object of love. So he is the object of Gopi's love in his Kaishora form, right? In his Kaishora form, he is the object of Gopi's love. In his Pauga form, he is the object of the Gopa's love. And his Balya form, he is the object of love of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, like that. So in this way, he is Vishayalambana and he is also Ashraya Alambana. Why? Because Krishna also feels love towards the devotees. So therefore, he is also the shelter of love, abode of love, right? Krishna is also abode of love because he feels great feelings of love towards his devotees, especially devotees of Vrindavan. So therefore, Krishna can sometimes be the Uddipan, his qualities. He can sometimes be the Vishalambana, sometimes he can be the Ashrayalambana, right? And sometimes, right? Sometimes devotees are Uddipan, devotees are Ashrayalambana, and sometimes the devotees Vishayalambana also, right? So how the devotees are Uddipan? Because sometimes devotees' qualities are very attractive to Krishna. When devotees, as Krishna says, Nachatasman manusheshu kaschin me priyakrittama. Bhavita nachate tasmat anya priyataro bhuvihi. Oh, my Arjuna, there is no one so dear to me as much as this person who out of compassion shares this message of Bhagavad Gita with others. So when Krishna sees this compassionate attitude in a devote towards other suffering souls of this material world, then Krishna's love get enhanced. So in that way, the qualities in a devotee can also act as uddipan for Krishna's love. So in that way, devotees can also be uddipana, right? And sometimes devotees are ashrayalambana, right? They are the abode of love because they possess love towards Krishna. And sometimes the devotees are vishayalambana because they are the object of love for Krishna, right? So in this way, when Krishna becomes vishayalambana, then the devotees become ashrayalambana. And when Krishna becomes ashrayalambana, then devotees become vishayalambana, like that. So because it's mutual, just like I was feeling solace embracing my father's dhoti. Similarly, my mother, father, I had seen that they still have hundreds of letters that I had written while I was in school, right from my sixth standard. Means those letters must be, 1992, which means 30 years old. 30-year-old letters, which absolutely, if you read them, they have no meaning, not like something very deep or anything where I am expressing some deep appreciation or something. Nothing actually. Some small boy, what he will write. Same thing every time. In fact, every time I used to write very, very similar letters actually. And they have stacked them. My father has put a folder in which he has collected all the letters I had written. And I can see literally in many of the letters, because in those the days of ink pen, so we used to write using the fountain pen, right? Fill it with ink and write. And in many of the letters I can clearly see, smudging at different places. The ink is smudged, which means I can clearly see my mother would have cried and tears had fallen, and then the letters were smudged. Almost in every letter you can see smudged ink blot. Reading the letters like that. Therefore, this is true in both cases. So you can have uddipanas when Krishna is the abode of love. He finds many qualities in devotees very, very attractive to him. And when Krishna becomes the object of love and the devotees become the abode of love, they find many, many qualities and things connected to Krishna very attractive. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he actually came and grabbed that rotten rice that Raghunath Das Goswami was eating in Puri. He used to catch that and he started eating, right? Which means that rotten rice which was eaten by Raghunath Das Goswami, that is the uddipan for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? Like that. And, so in this way, because it is a mutual love between Krishna and devotees, both act as Vishayalambana and Ashrayalambana, and things are qualities connected to the devotee and Krishna act as Uddeep for each other, right? However, Rupa Goswami means a very simple thing. He says, Ashraya means one with whom love rests, Vishaya means the object of love, and Udipan means stimulus of love, something that reminds us of Krishna, right? Same thing that we discussed. So we are discussing, because Chaitanya Rupa Goswami's main contribution is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So therefore we are discussing here that what constitutes rasa. First aspect of rasa, the first aspect of rasa, vibhav, that which triggers that emotion. That's what we are discussing right now. That which states that love. So this is vibhav. Vibhav has ashrayalambana, vishayalambana, and uddipana, like that. When we hear about Krishna or see a picture of him as the object of love, we hear a description of Krishna as the object of love, the Vishaya, the one who is loved, then love or rasa can awaken in us, right? When we hear about Krishna, Krishna is the object of love and we are the abode of, and that love can manifest in our heart. We hear how devotee loves, then rasa be awakened in us also. So when we hear about the gopis' love for Krishna, Sridama's love for Krishna, or Nandama Yashoda's love for Krishna, then also our love can get inspired. When we hear of some things associated with Krishna, they are incentives or uddipans that have love or the experience of rasa. Right? So this is uddipan. When Rupa Goswami says that there are two kinds of love carriers who are capable of generating experience of rasa and hearts, he means that a love carrier can be either a siddha or sadhaka. So we can get inspired in our devotional service either seeing or hearing the life of Vrajavasis or perfected devotees, or even our fellow devotees can tremendously interest in Krishna consciousness. Another sincerely practicing sadhaka can also inspire Krishna consciousness in our heart, right? We can hear about how Lalita and Vishaka, Rupa Manjari associate with Krishna, or we can listen about how a sadhaka associates with Krishna. So both can be inspiring. By listening about the sadhaka, we begin to experience rasa. When we hear about how the sadhaka loves Krishna, rasa is awakened in our hearts. So the emotion towards Krishna, sometimes when you come in touch, right, like you hear about a devotee's love for Jagannath ji, uh, or a devotee's special love for Shishi Radha Sundar, right? And when you hear from them, you feel like really uh, something which you have never experienced before towards Supreme Lord, that you start experiencing, that starts awakening in our heart. We also seem to actually start developing that kind of a mood of attraction for Radha Sham Sundar or Jagannath Ji, that after hearing from them, after associating with them, and they may be constantly engaged in serving the Lord, and they may engage us also in assisting them in serving the Lord, and assisting them uh, and, experiencing their mood of service and love towards their lordships. We may also start that similar love may also start happening in our hearts. So therefore, we should not think that only a perfected devotee can inspire that kind of love in our heart, but a sadhaka can also very well inspire actually. Therefore, Rupa Goswami says that a sadhaka has already reached level where his love for Krishna has become fully manifest and he is eligible to directly associate with Krishna. However, at the same time, there is some obstacle in his way. Samyak nairvigyam anupagataha, he says. And we hear how he overcomes those obstacles in his way to Krishna. Rasa appears in us. This is what even in the association of sadhakas we get, right? So we hear parasparanukathanam pavanam dyashah mitoratir mitotushtir nivrittir mita atmanah. So it is mentioned in the association of devotees, when we come together and discuss Krishna Katha, three things it does. Mitorati, it develops, it generates mutual friendship or mutual affection for each other. Mitotushti, one feels completely satisfied and inspired in each other's association. Mitotushti. And nivrittir mita atmana, Nirvritirmita Atmanaha. So Nirvritirmita Atmanaha means both of them get a sense of positive inspiration to overcome the anarthas or obstacles uh, in their practice of devotional service. So both of them feel, oh, you could overcome this anartha, then I also have some hope. I can also probably overcome this anartha. Like that, both feel a sense of positive inspiration to overcome the obstacles on our way to Krishna. Hmm. So like that, he says that even in the association of sadhakas, we can slowly start gaining access to rasa. He says, our love for Krishna, our sthai bhav, the dormant love for Krishna starts manifesting itself. When we see what a devotee does out of love for Krishna, a devotee who has reached the highest level of attachment and who is ready to see Krishna, how he or she is overcoming the obstacles standing in his way, ready to sacrifice everything. When we remember this attachment to Krishna or the experience of rasa to us, like, so when you read biographies of Srila Prabhupada, or when you read the biography of even disciples of Srila Prabhupada, like Yamuna Mataji or Hladini Mataji, it's so inspiring how they developed the love for Krishna and how they came time and again different kinds of obstacles. That actually gives us the inspiration that this is worth going through. So compared to them, compared to what they went through, the obstacles that I may go through is very, very insignificant. And still they fought, which means what they were aspiring for must be very, very worthy. So let me also endeavor very sincerely to progress and overcome this obstacle. Like that, we get a positive sense of inspiration. So he says, we thus understand another meaning of this verse when Raghunath Das Goswami says, remember clearly Rupa Goswami. So why? Because who is Rupa Goswami? He is a Siddha or a Sadhaka. He is a Siddha playing the role of Sadhaka. He is an eternal, he is a Nitya Siddha, but he is also teaching us how we can practice devotional service while living here. He is a Sadhaka Avesh. In the body of a Sadhaka, he is an eternal associate body of a Sadhaka. Right? So, we can get inspired seeing Rupa Goswami. We can get inspired seeing the contemporary examples also. Right? He runs around Vrindavan and cries, He Radhe Devike Chalalite He Nandasun Puta. Where are you? I cannot see you. And we think of Sanatan Goswami, I think of the obstacles that he had to overcome in order to come to Lord Chaitanya. Or Lord Chaitanya seeing and his expensive chadar, the Lord telling him, give away this expensive blanket. How he nearly got killed in an inn by the owner. Hussain Shah sent him to prison. So when we hear about these of Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, what they went through and what they, how they overcame it, and how they, with great intensity, they persisted and tried to attain the association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we think, wow, this is amazing. And I should also end that direction, like that we get a positive inspiration. So basically, this is what here His Holiness Bhaktivigyan Goswami Maharaj is indicating to us. This is actually Sputam Premna Nityam Smara. To hear about them not only refers to reading and studying their writings, but here study, remember, and appreciate with gratitude their lives also. Right? Therefore, at least during their appearance and disappearance days, we can hear about how they, with great diligence and inspiration, they tried to actually overcome the great obstacles and tried to achieve the goal of establishing a relationship with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and tried to please Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So when we hear this, at least on their appearance and disappearance days, then it can give us tremendous inspiration to follow. And on top of that, so on other days, except for their appearance and disappearance, we can study their books, their instructions that they have given in their books, and at least on their appearance and disappearance day, we can meditate on their lives, how they dedicated their lives, uh, uh, overcoming very, very difficult obstacles just for bringing a smile in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's face, pleasing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees, like that. This is Putam Premna Nityam. We read this and see how love manifests itself in the pure devotees. When Rupa Goswami explains Ashraya Alambana, he explains how a pure devotee loves Krishna and how he responds to him. Right? Srila Prabhupada's love for Krishna manifested in his renunciation of everything, including his wife, and going out to preach. In fact, that he carried out the order of his spiritual master in his heart throughout his life, and that the order of his spiritual master was the thread upon which Prabhupada's entire life was strung. So if you see how actually if we study Leelamrit, it is actually performing Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti only. Because that is how Raganuga Sadhana is defined. How is it practiced? Krishnam Smaran Seva Sadhaka Rupena Siddha Rupena Chatrahi Tad Bhava Lipsuna Karya Vrajalokanusarataha. He says one should meditate upon Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's associates, both in Sadhaka Rupa and Siddha Rupa. So in Siddha Rupa means one meditates on Krishna's eternal associates such as Sridhama, Subal, Nand Maharaj, Lalita Devi, Vishaka Devi, like that. And in Siddha Rupa, we meditate upon Krishna's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates, Srila Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, and our own Guru, how they performed bhakti, how they tried to please Krishna. So we meditate on that. That is actually Raganuga Bhakti only. That is a part of Raganuga Bhakti. When we meditate on our own Acharya's lives, how they practice Krishna consciousness, that is actually a part, very much a very integral part of Raganuga Bhakti. That was the manifestation of his love for Krishna. What should happen in our hearts? This inspires us. Love for Krishna should come. Experience of rasa should appear. So when we hear about the life of Srila Prabhupada, the life of Rupa Goswami, the life of Sanatan Goswami, actually this has the potential to generate love. So therefore, this is actually, in one sense, when we hear about contemporary acharyas, when we hear about our ancient acharyas, this has the potential. This is actually practice of Raganuga Bhakti. If you see Rupa Goswami's definition, this is not different from practice of Raganuga Bhakti actually. And this is so inspiring. And this will never lead to any kind of Sahajya mentality at all. Because when you read about their sacrifice, how can we imitate that? And our acharyas, it's not that they were rolling in the ground, crying and all the time. They involved in active preaching, active service. So active sacrifice for pleasing Guru, for pleasing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? So if we hear about these associates and remember them, this aspect of Raganugadana is actually very safe, very sweet and very full actually. Raghunath Das Goswami says, "O mind, if you want to attain attachment to Krishna, then constantly remember, he says to remember the sadhaka devotees who have spent all their lives in Vrindavan and who are willing to go through anything for the quest of God. So the sadhaka devotees here refers to the Goswamis. Swarupam Shri Rupam Saganamiha Tasyagrajam, like that. Remember Shrupa, Swarupa and Sanatan Goswami, right? Who have given up everything to come to God, and all the other devotees generate in our hearts that same attachment and tears to come to our eyes, right? So we have to remember them, we have to read about them, we have to discuss about them with others. So this is Swarupam Shri Rupam Saganamiha Tasyagrajamapi. So at this point I will pause because we have come to the end of discussion of the commentary to this third verse by Srila Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj. At this point of time, I'll see if there are any quick comments, questions, discussions. You can please raise your hands and we will discuss for a while. In the meantime, while you are just framing your question and raising your hands, I have received one question through chat box. So Shamkund Prabhu writes, Prabhu, you were giving an example of the sacrifices that Srila Prabhupada made and his constant meditation on the order of his spiritual master as his manifestation of love towards Krishna. Potentially, similar example can also be seen in a beautiful person who may not necessarily have loving tendencies. May I know your thoughts on this? So, now when actually, Prabhuji, it would I would unmute you if you can please explain. When you are talking about dutiful person, are you indicating a dutiful person in the sense of a devotee, or are you talking about a person who may have dutiful feelings towards his
Just a minute,
father?
Prabhu. I'm having some problem with my speaker. Just...
Haribol, can you hear me, Prabhu? Shamkund Prabhu, can you hear me? Okay. So while Shamkund Prabhu is fixing his speaker, let's try to see if someone else has any questions, comments, discussions. Anyone? Can you, if there is anything that you would like to share, discuss, or ask, you can please raise your hands and I will unmute you and we can discuss for a while. Okay, so I am going to unmute you now, Shamkund Prabhu. So you can please ask your question for the benefit of all.
So the question was something very similar to whatever I had typed in the chat box. That quite often we hear many instances, even from Prabhupada's Leela Amrita, that Prabhupada made such a big sacrifice. And yes, this could very well be from a platform of love that Srila Prabhupada really had. However, most of us, when we hear this, some of us may come from a background of dutifulness. And when we hear this, it may relate more to our sense of duty. And we might rather take it as Srila Prabhupada felt he received something from his spiritual master gave an order, I should follow. So whether we may like our spiritual master or we may have feelings or not is a separate thing, but the vasana that we carry from our previous births of following elders, say, or just doing what the guru says, that may be mostly what some of us may operate with, not necessarily evoking a feeling of love. So respect and dutifulness is one platform, love is another platform. So I just want to ask your thoughts that what do you think about it this way, or maybe it is there anything more to it? That's just a thought I had. I wanted to seek your inputs on my thoughts, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you, Bro. So, I mean, there I would say it's not in one sense very black and white. That if you have a sense of duty, you may not necessarily possess a sense of love. And in fact, actually, this transition of uh, Vaidhi Bhakti to Raganuga Bhakti is more, it's a very gradual transition. It's not like a sudden transition. And this transition of Vaidhi to Raganuga is actually the transition of actually Kartavya Buddhi or dutiful nature to actually love. And as and when, uh, but in one sense, if you say, uh, this is not like a completely um, mm, uh, the, the the reason why we feel duty bound to that particular personality and we are not feeling duty bound to anyone else uh, in itself means actually that be a sense of love. So it may not be very clearly manifest, but definitely at the substratum of that, uh, the foundation of feelings of duty towards person must have some element of love. And gradually when anavritti happens and when one progresses, that kartavya buddhi gradually is transformed um, into more feeble feelings of love. So it's a very organic transition, I feel. But to say, to create like that, it is completely uh, duty and no love, it's generally not like that. Generally, maybe a major portion may be a duty bound mode, but then there must be some element of love for sure. Otherwise, why there are so many people, why one gets attracted to have those duty bound feelings towards that particular person? There must be some element of attraction and love. That's what I feel.
Okay, can I just ask a follow-up question, Prabhu?
Yes, bro. Yes, bro.
So going from duty to love, from your insights into scriptures, from your observations upon devotees, and from your personal experience, can you share with us your insights on what will help us go have the transition gradually? I mean, whatever, it can be gradual or whatever. Time is not a constraint. But what factors help in moving from duty to love?
So basically, one of the things is when we connect with the, like, for example, how do you develop personal love towards anyone in this material world also? When you come in touch with their qualities, when you come in touch with their guidance, which we may follow and we may get tremendously benefited. So so to hear about their qualities, about their actions, uh, and also when we follow their instructions and get personally benefited from that. So these are various ways by which the duty bound nature actually can get transformed into and also one of the very powerful ways is to come in touch with others, to associate with others who have that a very deep affection for that it could be Krishna, it could be the spiritual master. So when you have the association of that person, and when we hear from them their deep appreciation for the spiritual master, then definitely we will see that the sense of duty mm, has is slightly and imperceptibly changing towards affection and love. So so one thing is to summarize, one thing is application of instructions, and when we see that the instructions are very potent, and the application of those instructions are transforming into the desired results, so then that generates more appreciation and love. Second thing is association with other devotees who may have a more deeper love for the spiritual master. When you associate with them, hear from them, that is also a way by which this kartavya buddhi can transform into love. And of course, rendering some personal service, and and then when you see that the spiritual master is genuinely pleased, and certain reciprocations we may have with the spiritual masters, those personal reciprocations also can potentially generate that love. And of course, hearing his vani and trying to apply them very sincerely, and seeing the results for ourselves, pratyaksha vagamam. When you see that his shabda has the potential to transform into pratyaksha in our own lives, then that enhances our trust in the spiritual master, and then that acts as a very good impetus to transform that duty bound nature to actually affection.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further comments, questions before we move forward? If you have anything, you can please raise your hands. Okay. So it's already 8:57. So I think we will not start Urmila Mataji's commentary this week. So we'll end our discussion here, and we'll continue this discussion forward. Take this discussion forward next Tuesday. So thank you all very much for your patient listening. So hoping to have your association next week also. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.